I knew I was going to hear it. I knew it, and I even told all of you I was going to hear it. And guess what? I'm going to rant and rave about it. We're venturing back into the Idaho 4 case, and we're talking about, that's right, Bryan Kohberger and all the people putting money on his books. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's your favorite convict. Remember, your ex-convict, ARHayes. This is a Convict's Thoughts, and we're diving back in to the Idaho 4 case, where we've been talking here as of late because Bryan Kohberger, November 5th, had a restitution hearing that he chose. He said, hell no, I will not go. He did not. He did not step in front of Judge Hitler and allow that man to tear into him about finances that matters not in the penitentiary. Because, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what, Bryan Kohberger, during his plea agreement, signed off on $250,000 worth of restitution going to the state and another $80,000 on top of that would be split between the different families. Now, of course, there's also that additional fund that comes out to just less than $27,000 that he agreed to for various expenses for the families. Now, this restitution hearing was obviously held because of two families out there that, well, they wanted more of their expenses covered. And I get it. I understand. Death is never cheap, ladies and gentlemen, even outside of the loss of a family member, which is the worst of the worst. The financial burden becomes pretty extreme as well, especially when you are traveling and having to attend the capital murder case that's heading towards trial. But of course, all of that got nipped in the rear end right away. Now, I don't want to make this too long, but I just have to rant and rave. I found a video. I knew I was going to do it. I knew it was going to happen. And we're going to bring that up. We're going to listen, and we're going to talk about it. Are you ready to go? I'm not knocking this man. I get it. He's doing his job. He's another creator. He's putting his information out there. That's great. But I knew, and I told every single one of you, we would hear this out of somebody's mouth about the money being put on Bryan Kohberger's commissary books in jail.
So there are people sending Bryan Kohberger money, okay? And we know for sure that was happening when he was in jail before the plea deal and is probably still happening now. And the reason I bring this up is because Bryan Kohberger is fighting paying restitution, additional restitution to the victims. They are asking for more restitution when it comes to travel expenses and that kind of thing. He said he doesn't want to pay it. There's going to be a hearing. And now the state has filed another motion where they say the state is attaching a summary of the financial contributions made to the defendant while he was in custody at the Ada County Jail and the Latah County Jail. Now they have sealed that summary because I guess they don't want to see the names of the people who gave him money. And then they say in the event that the defendant is able to obtain financial compensation from third parties or family, the victim should have ready access to these assets for the satisfaction of their losses. So they're saying if people are going to give Bryan Kohberger money in jail and prison, then the family member should get a piece of that. And they say the case has attracted worldwide attention, which could result in the defendant prospectively receiving monies while he is in custody. So anyway, there's this hearing. I think it's on at the beginning of next month. I think maybe November 4th or 5th. I can't remember. But basically, Bryan Kohberger's attorneys are fighting him having to pay additional restitution. Prosecution says he should have to, and now they are saying, and they actually attached a list that people have been giving Bryan Kohberger money. I wish I could see that list. Be very interesting to see who that is, but they have sealed it.
So let's see that list, he says. He wants to see the list of people that have donated money to Bryan Kohberger while he was in jail. And look, ladies and gentlemen, Bryan Kohberger did receive money in jail. I do know of a few people that sent money. And I do fully understand that restitution will be paid not only to the state, but also the victims' families at a rate typically of 20 to 25% of every dollar that comes in. Now, I get it. People are upset because they can't touch the money that's coming in prior to him being sentenced. So everything that has just been talked about, ladies and gentlemen, in this man's video, his short, all happened prior to the November 5th restitution hearing. We did hear that the state prosecutors did submit the financials for Bryan Kohberger, and there was a decent amount of money that was deposited into his account. They said 5 figures. We don't know if that's the minimum of $10,000 or that 5 figures could be $99,000. We don't know. We just know it was in the 5-figure range. And you have to understand, that's over a 3-year time frame. 3 years. What does it legitimately matter that people have donated their hard-earned money, making their own personal choices? They have the freedom to do so, that they have given to a man that they felt they wanted to give support to. That's not against the law the last time I checked. That's also protected in privacy. None of that information should be shared with the public. And I get it. This man wants a list of everything. But you know what? I do too. I do too. How about we let's just go after the Gonsalves GoFundMe account. Can I get a list of all the donations that were made to that account that were specified being donated for the travels to and from the hearings and the trial, the housing that would be necessary for the trial, and any of the food and the various other things that would be for the trial? I'm just wondering. There was never a trial. There never will be a trial. What happened to those donated funds? That's not my business. It's not my business, but we are ranting. We are raving. This is a convict ranting and raving about money. Money that's being donated to support somebody that's now housed in the penitentiary. But let me give you a little bit of an idea why it was important for the support for Bryan Kohberger, because it does seem as though this young man was very close with his family, even when people like this that we just watched clearly stated that he literally had a bad relationship with the family, even to the point that they potentially were the ones that turned him in. Remember all that garbage? You remember everybody talking about that? But now the clear-cut statement that came out of the restitution hearing is the majority of the money that was put onto Bryan Kohberger's spending account while in jail came from his family. They probably wanted the young man to be able to have soap, maybe even be able to get something to eat here or there. But even more importantly, do you understand? Maybe people out there that have never been incarcerated, maybe you don't get the full gamut of understanding of how expensive phone calls are from jail to the loved ones that are not in jail with you. Now, I've made a few phone calls, as many of you probably understand, considering I'm married to a beautiful young lady that stood by me through a very long sentence of not only being incarcerated in the jail, but also in the penitentiary. And let me give you some ideas, because I also placed phone calls to others that did not live in the very state where I was being housed. Phone calls when you're incarcerated are not cheap, and they're limited in time. Most institutions limit your phone calls to approximately 12 to 15 minutes in length. And if you're in town, that's going to cost you 10 to 20 bucks. Now, you have to factor in Bryan Kohberger was housed in Idaho. His long distance collect calls, both from the Latah County Jail and also from the Ada County Jail, were being placed and made all the way to Pennsylvania and other states, as he didn't just talk to mom. He did talk to other family members. And those phone calls typically, because I used to call New York from both New Mexico and Arizona, run between $25 to $35 per phone call. Per phone call. Now, I will admit I don't fully understand the whole tablet thing. I don't know if that's cheaper, whether it's got a difference in the financial obligation to be able to do that, but it still takes money on your account to be able to do that and send emails. I don't know the finances of that, and I don't want to lie to you and say that I do. I could do a little bit of research, but it's different in every single state that now has those. I also can't calculate how much time the young man spent with his family on that tablet or what else he possibly used it for. That's not my place. That's not my business. Just like all the people out there right now that are on the opposite side of things and full supporters of the Gonsalves family, the Mogan family, and the other 4 victims' families. And I am not trying to disrespect them. You yourself could have potentially donated money, submitted money to them for whatever possible needs they had. And nobody's questioning that. However, some of us have to look with a side eye and wonder what you actually did with the money when you said it was for trial. And then legitimately, this never made it to trial. But we don't really know what happened to that money. We don't have a list of how much you were actually donated and where you spent it all. Hell, I did hear that maybe another child in the family just went to college. It's not real cheap, and these are where these questions can arise from. But hell, we as people out here living in the free world, Bryan Kohberger's in a locked up world. We as individuals that live in this free world that earn our own income do have the freedom to make decisions on what we want to do with that. Now, you could be strapped completely down to your last dollar and still want to bless somebody by giving. And I'm sure many did that through the different GoFundMes to not only the victims' families, but what about those 2 young ladies that survived this horrific crime that also have GoFundMe set up for their protection, moving costs, and various other things? I'm not attacking saying that nobody should donate to those, but hell, should we get a list of everybody that's doing that as well? Look, it's one thing to question why people are supporting a multi-murderer while he's in prison. I get that. Trust me, I've heard it so many times. But it's another thing to question those that are out here in the free world, living free world type of days, working hard for their incomes, making their decisions on what's best for them and their families and how they're going to survive day in and day out. And you want to come and make statements about people literally buying some shampoo, a couple of top ramens, and maybe some phone time for Bryan Kohberger. That's their decision. Even if they want to spend their last dollar to do so, nobody should have a say in that. I can't criticize anybody because when I was incarcerated, not only was I blessed by financial means coming in to me, but I watched with my own eyes everybody else on the yard that was taken care of and blessed as well. Was it everybody? No, it wasn't. But I can tell you there's inmates in there like myself that have a big heart that take care of those around us. I know nobody wants to hear about how the white boys take care of the white boys and the Hispanics take care of the Hispanics and all the different races. They do. We do have meal days with each other. We do support each other. We do give our extra shoes to a new inmate. And Bryan Kohberger was greeted, I guarantee you, in the penitentiary with warming coming home gifts because that's what the white race does. No other race gave that to Bryan Kohberger, but I'm telling you, I know for a fact the white boys did. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're coming from. When you walk on the yard, you're given a chance until to either find out what you're there for, who you are, and why you shouldn't be there, or you get the clear and you move forward. There's so much hate. There's so much in this case that I literally had to rant and rave because I just watched another mainstream media. This is mainstream media. This man has by far more followers than I do, listeners, likes, subscribers, members, you name it. He blows me out of the water, and I get it. He's worked hard. He does his thing. But this is really just kind of on a fine line of ridiculous. Of course, people sent Bryan Kohberger money. Of course, people sent someone like Chris Watts money. Of course, people sent Richard Allen money. Of course, people send many others, trust me, with far worse crimes than even what Bryan Kohberger did, money. But why is the topic, why is the name, why is this discussion only Bryan Kohberger? Because I'm going to end it very simply in my rant. And I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I'm on a rant tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, it's because of the money this man is pulling in by saying these very things. It's the networks, the mainstream media that continue to broadcast this because it makes them money. It is Dateline, 2020. All the major TV stations make money. And everybody's worried about whether I or any of you want to send $100 to Bryan Kohberger, which now 20 to 25% of that $100 is gone right off the top before he can even order his soap and shampoo. This man's got years to do. They don't give you enough hygiene to even make it through the week if you're indigent. So I hope with what has been sent to him, he does good money management and doesn't get hooked on things that cost a lot of money and could ruin your life in a heartbeat in the penitentiary like narcotics. Now, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. It's a big argument. It's a big argument because I know for a fact, people out here in the free world, through their donationary platforms, have received far more money than the 5 digits in 3 years that Bryan Kohberger could have potentially brought in. And I also know his family, they gave him everything they possibly could to reach that amount. So who are we hating on? Bryan Kohberger or his family? Thanks again, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you stopping by as I ranted, I raved. It's a Friday night. I hope you're getting ready for a great weekend. I hope to see you all again soon, maybe tomorrow, when I join two gentlemen, Pete Altieri with Murder Metal Mayhem and Devil's Advocates, Mr. Lee, as we talk the Idaho 4, and I guarantee you it's going to get interesting. Hope to see you there. Have a great night.